The BMW X2 never really had the same design language as some of its other siblings like the X4 and the X6. It also didn't have the traditional SUV styling of the X1, X3, or X5. Now for the second generation X2, it does have the coupe SUV design trend that the X4 and the X6 also have. But how good is the rest of this car? Let's go for a drive and find out. So this BMW X2 sits on the same chassis as the BMW X1, which was updated for last year. You can check out that review up here if you're interested. That means that this X2 has the same 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine and same 7-speed dual-clutch transmission. The engine produces 241 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque, which allows this car to accelerate from a stop to 100 kilometers an hour in just over 6 seconds. Power-wise, it feels like this 2-liter turbo has enough of it for this type of car. If you do want more, there is also the M35 version with over 300 horsepower. But for this xDrive28i, like I said, more than enough. I had the opportunity to fill up this car with 4 other passengers, and it still didn't feel like as though it was struggling to get up to highway speeds. So when it comes to the engine, I do like it. What I don't like is this 7-speed dual-clutch transmission. Now normally I do like dual clutch transmissions, I think that they're great, but in this one there are some circumstances in which it is not that great. When the car is moving, everything's fine. The transmission shifts are seamless, you don't feel them. When you put your foot down and demand a burst of acceleration, there is a little bit of a delay by DCT standards. This does improve, however, if you switch the car from the normal or personal drive mode into sport mode. Also, when you are in sport mode and put your foot all the way down, you do feel the transmission shifts. They are no longer smooth. It feels like as though somebody's kicking you in the back of the seat. But that's not my biggest complaint about this transmission. My biggest complaint is when you're just setting off from a stop. There's a noticeable delay from the time that you put your foot on the throttle pedal to the time that the car actually gets moving. And if you press harder on the throttle pedal, then it just makes the car feel more jerky when setting off from a stop. This delay gets further exaggerated once auto start stop gets involved. This auto start stop is very aggressive, so it makes it very annoying when you're doing 3-point turns. But the delay from taking your foot off the brake pedal and onto the throttle pedal is much more noticeable with auto start stop. Thankfully you can shut it off, but annoyingly you have to dig through the infotainment system to turn it off. So first you have to press a button on the center console and then select drivetrain and chassis on the infotainment screen, and then select deactivate the auto start stop. Further complicating things is that the auto start stop system gets automatically reset to its default on position as soon as you turn this car off. But at least if you leave the auto start stop system enabled at longer stoplights, it'll help with this car's fuel economy. This new X2 is quite economical if you drive mostly on highways. In a city, it's not so good at 9.7 liters per 100 kilometers, but on a highway, it's rated for up to 7.1 liters per 100 kilometers. Unfortunately, as a result of not driving too often on highways, I only managed to average 9.1 liters per 100 kilometers during my time with the car. Should you find yourself on more entertaining roads, the BMW X2 is a fun and engaging crossover. It does not have the rear-biased xDrive system of the X4 or X6, but it still has plenty of grip through corners. Of course, if you carry too much speed into a corner, it will safely understeer. The X2 feels agile and stable through turns with mid-corner bumps not disturbing the balance too much. You can option the X2 with adaptive M suspension for more body control in sport mode, but a smoother ride in the normal mode. ride of the 2024 BMW X2 is a bit firmer than some of its competitors like the GLA 250. The suspension can handle one or two bumps on a relatively smooth road, but once the tires drive over a cobbled or a heavily potholed road, the ride becomes choppy. But counteracting that are the seats, which I found to be very comfortable for my body size. I didn't get any numbness or back pain on longer commutes. Additionally, the cabin is isolated from the outside environment with minimal engine noise under normal driving conditions. In sport mode, there are enhanced engine noises being played through the stereo system. Wind noise is negligible on highways, and road noise is well subdued at higher speeds. Because this BMW X2 sits on the same platform as the X1, the interior is identical to that. So it has the same floating center console design, same dual screen layout that is very common on many vehicles these days, and a lack of physical buttons for the climate. Climate controls are now built into the infotainment system, just like how it is in, I think, every single BMW vehicle right now. The only physical controls that you have on the dashboard are for the front defroster and the rear defroster, as well as 3 buttons for the lights on the left side of the steering wheel. The rest of this interior feels pretty nice. All of the materials are soft touch, from the upper portion of the dashboard to the upper portion of the door panels. The lower portion of the cabin is hard scratchy plastic, and there is some gloss black surrounding the cup holder and wireless phone charging pad area, so that will probably get scratched up over time. But otherwise, the parts of this cabin that you will actually interact with, like the steering wheel or the seats, they actually feel nice to the touch. I also find it funny how there's a boost label on the left paddle shifter, because there is no boost in this car. Essentially what you're doing every time that you pull on this downward pedal is downshifting the transmission, and that's your boost. But anyway, apart from that, the interior feels pretty nice, very spacious as well for my above average height of 6'4". And in terms of visibility, I have good visibility out the front and out the side. But of course, out the back, it is like looking through a little mail slot, because that's all that you see. You just see directly behind you, and you're basically seeing just the windshield of the vehicle behind you. Now with that, let's go check out the back seats. This being one of the smallest crossovers that you can get from BMW, space in these back seats is very limited, particularly for somebody as tall as me, at 6'4". Behind my tall driving position, my knees do feel squished, and the back of the front seats is made out of hard plastic. So if I sit here for longer periods, my knees probably will get a bruise or two. Headroom, not that great as well. My head is right up against the headliner. It doesn't feel too dark back here thanks to the panoramic sunroof, or I should say moonroof, because that doesn't actually open. You just get a shade that opens and closes, but the actual sunroof is fixed. You do get 2 air vents as well as 2 USB-C ports in the back, and of course the cup holders are in the armrest. Now these seats do split 40-20-40, and they do have some recline. Right now they are reclined all the way to the back, so you can have them in a more upright position, but then of course that limits your headroom even more. And that's about it for the back seats of the BMW X2. Further behind the seats, the 2024 X2 has 716 liters of cargo space, which further increases to 1,447 liters with the 40-20-40 rear seats folded. Due to the stylish sloping roofline, you won't be able to fit taller items in the trunk unless you lie them down. Under the trunk floor, you'll find a pretty sizable compartment that can easily fit a few backpacks. How much will you be paying for the 2024 BMW X2? Well, this xDrive28i starts at $48,800 Canadian, which is about $3,000 more than the starting price of the BMW X1. This particular demo car is not fully loaded, and yet it has about $10,000 in options. Some of the options that this BMW X2 had equipped included sustainable mocha colored upholstery, heated front seats along with a heated steering wheel, dual zone automatic climate control, a large moonroof, a power liftgate, a wireless phone charging pad, surround view cameras, Harman Kardon sound system, a head-up display, built-in dash cam, and for some reason a wide-angle camera mounted inside the car. The X2 receives BMW OS 9 for the infotainment system. On the surface, it has a simple design with the home screen displaying the navigation system, along with a few widgets such as weather, phone, or music. However, once you dive deeper into all of the available apps, it can be a bit overwhelming for some. This also requires multiple steps to change the settings, such as disabling the auto start-stop function that I mentioned earlier. But you can set some of the settings as your favorites for quick access. Additionally, this system allows for wireless CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. The BMW X2 can also be equipped with the Parking Assistant Plus. This will not only display a 3D view of the car by using the surround view cameras, but it can also record the last few maneuvers of any forward movement and then perfectly replicate it in reverse. All you have to do is control the speed of the car while reversing. This is great when you find yourself down a tight street with no way to make a 3-point turn. In the end, this BMW X2 is just like the X1 that I reviewed last year. Pretty good to drive, but my biggest complaint is the automatic transmission. It would be much better if it had a more traditional 8-speed auto instead of this 7-speed DCT. As for the coupe SUV design, well, if you are a subscriber of this channel, then you know I'm not a fan of it. Personally, if I wanted something practical, I would go for an X1 or an X3, a more traditional looking SUV. But if I wanted something stylish, then I would go for a two-door coupe or a sedan or even a station wagon. I find these coupe SUVs to be too much of a compromise, but that's just me. In the meantime, if you would like to know more about this 2024 BMW X2, I have a written review with a few more details about it over on my website. You can find that link in the video description or click on the pop-up banner right up there. And as always, I will see you in the next car or truck or most likely another SUV like this one. Anyway, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video and see you in the next one.